So the experience that I would have, especially when I first started going to Dead shows, the sensory experience of walking into a Dead show was always, I think the word that comes to mind for me is sort of magnetic. It felt like everyone was sort of attracted to this core at the center of whatever stadium, field, wherever amphitheater they were playing at. You could feel this pull to the center where they were playing. And I think that it felt like you were walking. It didn't feel like you were walking back in time. I started going to shows in the 1980s, in the early 80s. It wasn't like you were stepping back into the 60s. Rather, you were stepping into a sort of mobile community that had its own culture, its own economy, its own language in some ways. And so when you would go into a show, you would have this very immersive experience of stepping into this other culture. And that would really happen not just once you walked into the show, but if you toured, you would feel it when you walked into the parking lot. Or if it was Madison Square Garden, when you walked onto the street out in front of the garden itself, that there was this community of people who were coming together to have, in some ways it was almost like going to church. And I don't mean that to sound like it was a religious experience. It was more like where this community came together to have this very common sort of spiritual experience. The thing that I really grew to appreciate from the Dead was that experience of walking into this community that felt other than, that felt really specific, that felt very welcoming and embracing. And also, again, as a kid from New Jersey who eventually moved out west, I sort of had a romantic vision of what you could experience in America. And so in addition to that sense of going to shows, going on Dead Tour was a little bit like our own On the Road. You could get out there and see America and experience America in a way that you might not otherwise experience it. So as much as I loved going to the shows, I loved the process of getting there. And I think for a lot of Deadheads that was very true.